Okay, so back to my backyard real quick. The landlord, since I have moved my Buddha statue over to near the wall, the landlord has mowed the lawn in that area, in that previous area where the Buddha was. So by doing so, he kind of conveyed to me that, no, now I am mowing the lawn in this area. So it very well could be this is a part of his communication to let me know he was apprehensive about the possibility of damaging my property, my Buddha statue. So, that's kind of good to know that communication, listening to how one communicates without talking with their mouth, see what is their hand doing, is very important to listen to. Okay, so there's even more to talk about when it comes to things going on here with my home, and but I'm gonna get into that another day. I'm gonna talk about that some other time. Hold on. Okay, so I began to talk about how this financial chart in the last video, and how I mentioned that I'm at a point where I need to prioritize spending wisely. It's also important to spend money. I mean, if you're saving your money every day and you actually have a need to spend it, it's very important to have in perspective how you yet are investing your money by spending it wisely, on things that you need. So when you consider spending your money, how can you do so in a way that is optimal because you want to do so in a way that is investing in the different categories of your life that you need. Okay, so here within the first year of a lease, it is very natural to consider a category. See, I'm such a case where I have been homeless, sleeping in a tent for many years. See, this is a 12-year homelessness category, and many of those years I didn't even go to a shelter nor was a part of a program. I just lived by myself in a tent, and I wanted it that way, and I needed it that way. There were unexplainable things happening to me. It was very difficult for me to explain everything that was happening to me to a therapist. When I go to a counselor, it really took a lot of time to explain, and in order for the counselor to understand, I would have to explain some information first so that they will understand this information by the time I could talk about it. So prudence is a virtue. That means, like when children go to school and study, you have to teach them pluses and minuses, arithmetic first before they'll understand algebra and calculus. These things have to be understood first. These things have to happen first in order for things subsequently to happen. These things have to happen first. Prudence is a virtue. This is what prudence is. The things that have to happen first before something else can happen. These other things won't happen unless these things happen first. That's prudence. Prudence is a virtue. Okay. So because I'm such a case, when I went homeless, I began to discover that I noticed phenomenon in nature, natural phenomenon in nature that I didn't kind of notice before. It wasn't my everyday observation. Once I was homeless and living kind of a hermit lifestyle, I began to notice phenomenon in nature that I made these observations that I naturally didn't make before. So with these observations, I began to value learning about these things. I valued learning about the observations I made. So when you consider transitions of life, if you have a case of homelessness that is so long, when I first moved into this house, how was I doing emotionally? See, I went through a stage where I was like, wow, I am not used to this. I have to get used to this again. So developing feng shui wisdom, where you develop backyard things first, really, really is wise with such cases. You don't want to pressure such cases. I want to just give you all this used furniture. I want you to there's a bed I want you to have. It could be it's wise not to do that. What if I went through another crisis, because here I am wondering if I'm going to am I going to lose this home anyway after the year lease is done? Am I moving out anyway? If I'm going to move out at all, how is it that I want to plan for this possibility? That is very, very natural. If I was a homeless case that just recently was homeless, I went homeless and I was only homeless for a couple months and then I got into a housing program. That is very different. See, the emotional transition, the psychological transition is very different, has a very different nature, okay? But for people who have been homeless for a long, long time, there really are other stages that we need to be wise with. So that's something to consider. Anyway, so during this first year, I was considering, when I first moved in, I was considering how long is this lease going to last? Is it going to even last the full year? Is something going to happen and my home is damaged and I don't even want to live here? Is the roof going to leak? Is, plants going to grow through my, foundation? So when I considered how I wanted to spend my money, there are these bracket categories. See, here's a scenario of, it could be I'm not going to live here and even live the full year lease. And then here's another bracket where I do live a full, I live here for the full year. And then here's another bracket where I, am here even longer for another year. So this category of furnishing is different than these categories. This I could move out with it in a few months. Here, within a few months. Here I can move out at the end of the year. And here I can move out after 2 years. And then there's even more. So the category of furniture that I get, I'm prioritizing in such a way. I consider it how I have rented a storage unit before. When I was living in San Francisco, I camped in Golden Gate Park in a tent every day for 2 years. Okay? I lived in a tent there and I've rented a storage unit. So I know I could rent a storage unit as a homeless person for several years. So naturally, I would consider, well, what is it I could possibly put into a storage unit, with this scenario or this scenario, that sort of thing, so the way I'm prioritizing, this is the way I should prioritize. I should do so with such wisdom. There are different scenarios that can happen. So the category, the bracket, see, this is a bracket, this is a bracket, this is a bracket, and the common bracket that they have is here. So this category of items that I should get for my own well-being, for my own peace of mind, is what it is. It could be I don't want to rush into getting furniture, but I also need some furniture for practical everyday living. I need a chair to sit on. See, and I have a chair to sit on. It's a folding chair. Okay, so on to my next video.